Barnaby Jones will return next Thursday night at 10, 9 Central and Mountain on most of these stations.
Please support the Word Balloon podcast by going to patreon.com/wordballoon. Become a part of the League of Word Balloon listeners. That's patreon.com/wordballoon. Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress with you. Man, I have not talked to this guy in like 15 years, but it is so great to see, truly, and this isn't hyperbole, one of the funniest guys in comics and animation, Kevin Shinick. Welcome back.
How are you?
Good to see you, man. Yeah, I'm doing fine. God, you really blew my mind going, I remember you. And I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Do. Of course I do. You kidding me? You're very memorable, John. You're very memorable.
I hope that's a good thing. It is
always a good thing to be memorable.
Very, very cool. Seriously, man, you are tearing it up. And honestly, I've been paying attention these 15 years, and you were already tearing it because you were doing things with Mad TV, which was great.
Right. That's right.
And of course, Robot Chicken and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that stuff. But I know you're about to start a Kickstarter campaign for a really cool sounding graphic novel. Here are the alternate covers for Host Mortem. Give me the elevator pitch on
All right. Well, the elevator pitch is you're right what you know, right, John? So it's not going to sound too absurd that this is a story of two fake detective game show hosts from the 1990s who have to solve a series of real murders in the 1940s. And if you remember, I hosted a show in the 90s called Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego, there you go, right there, where I played myself, but as a time-traveling detective. And before me was Greg Lee, who played himself as a classic 1940s gumshoe detective. So the funny thing was I had this idea before I came upon that extra nugget. I wanted to do a very noir piece. And I was starting to do it as a television pilot. And everybody loved it. But they're all like, but no one will make it because it's period, even though everything I watch is period. But that's the out people give me.
Yeah, that is so weird, Kevin,
honestly. I know. It's bizarre. I'm tired of hearing it. However, I was told, like, oh, maybe you're a comic book guy. You should turn this into a graphic novel. And I thought, yeah, but, there are noir murder mystery graphic novels. What can I do that's going to break through the noise? What's something that only Kevin Shinick can do? And then it dawned on me, wait a minute. I, like I said, was a detective. So what I did was I leaned back into that world and the kind of the tongue-in-cheek of it all. And when I came up with the title Host Mortem, it really just summarized everything, because what I love about this title is it tells you right off the bat, it's tongue-in-cheek. It involves time travel. It involves hosting. It involves mystery. It involves film noir. John, it's everything that I love in one cover. So I decided to do a Kickstarter for it because, the comic book industry is not all over the place, but it's all over the place, and just as easily as I go down to my local comic shop on Wednesdays, I also go on Kickstarter on Mondays or Tuesdays to see the new comics that are coming out or hopefully coming out. And I've gotten to really know that community. And I thought, what's great about Kickstarter for me is it is just that. It's a creative community. So I'm giving you everything up front. But what excited me about doing this graphic novel was not just being able to offer people this graphic novel, which I'll get into in a little bit. I'm blown away by the work that's being done on it. But I thought, what an opportunity to give people in my community a chance to collaborate. So we have things that normal backers will want, which is, original art or the chance to be murdered in the graphic novel, to have your likeness in the graphic novel. But as you said, I do a lot of things. I was the voice on Robot Chicken and Mad. I'm the voice of Bruce Banner across Marvel's animated universe for a while. So I thought, let's start throwing in stuff that only I can offer, which is, look, if you're doing an animated project, maybe I can do your VO for, if on a certain tier. You want to meet Greg and I? There are chances and tiers for videos from us, or live Zooms, or even going to dinner to discuss what projects you want to do. And you know, so it's full of things like that, because I want to be able to give things that are unique on top of giving them what I think is coming out to be a really incredible graphic novel.
So is Greg the other old Carmen Sandiego?
Yes. So what I did was, the funny thing is, like I said, our shows were back to back in the 90s, but Greg and I hadn't met for like 20 or so years. We just our paths never crossed, oddly enough. And then we finally met like 5 years ago at a friend's film festival. And we hit it off and we exchanged numbers and then never spoke to each other. And when I came up with this idea, I thought, let me reach out to Greg and see if he'd be interested in doing this. And when I told him the ridiculous premise, he was like, I am so in. So I always say Greg's my muse, because I did the writing, but Greg, knowing Greg, or I should say not knowing Greg, when we got thrown together on this thing, what I love about this thing is I've compared it to two things. One is the in-laws, where you got two people who should not be trying to solve a mystery together. And the other one is the Odd Couple. You know, I was fortunate enough growing up, or in my career early on, I did a lot of Broadway theater. And Tony Randall was a friend and a mentor to me.
Wow.
He put me in my first Broadway show. And so I just find it fitting that the Odd Couple kind of plays a theme in this post-mortem.
Who's Felix and who's Oscar in your dynamic?
You know, I got to say, it maybe go a little both ways, but I'd say I'm more the Felix and he's more the Oscar.
All right.
That's what's great about this for me is, you know, Carmen still has a fan base, and Greg and I are approached all the time. But, you know, you have a certain persona that you show on the show. But as most people, we have different and darker sides. And I thought it'd be fun because that audience that grew up with us are now adults. So I would think they want a little more mature fare. And so that's why I thought a legitimate murder mystery showing more of my personality and Greg's personality, a little darker side to all of them, might be of interest. Because while it could be fun, like I said, post-mortem tells you it's going to be tongue-in-cheek, but at the core of it all, it has to be a really great murder mystery. And that's what I've had fun really doing. You know, your show opens with the Barnaby Jones or, you know, all those guys. I'm a huge Columbo fan.
Oh, God,
so,
yes.
You know, so all those things, it's right in my wheelhouse. And that's been such a joy of doing this, was the idea came from all these things coming together. Because what I love about film noir is it's many things coming together that you wouldn't think would work. In my mind, it's like taking 1940s pulp fiction, turning it into a Caravaggio painting, and having it directed by like a 1930s expressionistic director. You know, those things maybe shouldn't work together, but when they come together, they do. And that's what we're doing with Post-Mortem. It's game shows, it's trivia, it's time travel, it's hosting, it's comedy, it's comics. If you like any of those things, then I encourage you to go and follow us either at Kickstarter, or I have it linked up to hostmortem.com.
Oh, good.
Because the more followers we get, the sooner we can launch, and the sooner, again, it's free to sign up as a follower, and we'll be able to let you know when we have certain early bird specials and things. Because like I said, we've got some tiers that I don't think you're going to want to miss.
Kari is watching us, and she says, I pledge a ton of Kickstarters, and that range in those types of tiers are always really cool, catering to all types of fans. I've already bookmarked this. Yeah, when are you waiting, Kev? Are you waiting in terms of when you're going to launch?
Truth be told, the whole Kickstarter, like I said, I've been a fan of it for a while, but it is a learning process, and it's going to launch, I'd say, within the month. We don't have an exact date yet because we are trying to hit certain numbers, and you know, if you have a certain amount of numbers, then it helps you with success, and it helps you all this stuff that I don't even know the whole rigmarole behind it. But yes, I'd say within the month we're going to launch.
Do you have any buddies in comics or in animation that are gurus as far as, you know, ways to run your campaign?
You know, yes. I mean, I have so many, you know, I've got so many fans in comic books. A lot of them were instrumental in explaining to me, like, you know, I wanted to do this, and it's no secret. Graphic novels are not cheap. This is a 180-page graphic novel. And at first I was kind of like, all right, well, I'll do a Kickstarter, maybe get some money to do a starter, blah, blah, blah. And then a lot of my friends were like, no, that book needs to be done before you even, they want to see some stuff. So I jumped on it, and I was so fortunate. I got to throw out the names here because I found this great artist named Damian Torres. I say found, but the world has found him on things like Marvel's Protocol and things like that. But Damian had this style that I was really trying to capture, which is he loves noir film like I do. He's great in comics. He's a beautiful artist. So he's kind of created this look that I am just in love with. And he's my main artist. And then I have Pippa Boland doing doing colors. And I've got Taylor Esposito doing my lettering. And then along the way, I thought, you know what? It's a 180-page plus graphic novel, but it's going to be made up of 4 different issues. And very noir-like, each issue is narrated by a different character. So then I thought, you know what? It might be fun to have a different artist or a different style, something different going on with each episode that would kind of match the narrator. So then I reached out, in addition to Damian, with this artist named Andrea Schiavone. He's Italian. And again, he has like a golden age look to his writing. And since we are in the 40s and there's a character of our fast-talking receptionist, I thought, from her POV, this would be fantastic if he could do that. So like I said, there's a lot of not hidden things, but there are a lot of layers to this graphic novel, and it all adds to the story.
Sounds great, Kevin. I'm another noir buff. In fact, I've had the great Eddie Muller on my show a couple times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Again, 20 years of doing this, I'm my network is working. I get to meet people like you and Eddie and stuff. What are some of your favorite noirs that we might see the influence in this thing?
You know, I mean, first of all, right out of the gate, a Double Indemnity, I think they all are great, but no 2 other actors elevate that language so well. It just flies. You know what I mean? And then, of course, you got The Big Sleep. I love Touch of Evil. There are so many that I can ramble on and on. And they're probably most people's favorites. But, and I have to throw LA Confidential in there, even from our time, because it was such a great throwback to that stuff. But what was so great about this, and the hook line for Host Mortem is, are hosts really smart, or do they just have the answers? I have all this random knowledge in my head. I always joke, like, I'd like to do something other than at a party say, hey, did you know the singular of spaghetti is spaghetto? You know what I mean? It does me no good. But I kept thinking, if I could put my knowledge to a better use and, like, say, solve a murder, then I thought I could put. So that's kind of the impetus of this. I'm going back in time, and of course, we discover a time portal at Comic-Con. So I follow it, and it lines me up with this murder mystery that, again, knowing facts now that we didn't know back then. If you love The Big Sleep, maybe you will know this already. But most people didn't know it in the 40s, and they didn't know it in the early 90s even, which was, The Big Sleep came out in 1946. And we all love it. It's a classic now. But prior to that, it was actually completed in 1945 and released only to about a small bunch of, army barracks and stuff as a test audience. And they realized they needed more scenes with Bogart and Bacall. So they went back and reshot it and recut it. In doing that, some people were recast. And I kept thinking, what if the people we know in those roles now were murdered? Would anybody realize that there were other people who were in those roles that got booted out because of scheduling or whatever? And I thought it just opened up this whole kind of absurd, what do I know now? Am I really smart, or do I just have the advantage of time on my side that I know these things? Because in 1998, they found this original cut. So it's things like that. So you're going to learn a lot. I can't tell you it's going to be important stuff. I can't tell you it's going to be stuff that's going to help a murder, but you're going to have a lot of trivia in this graphic novel as well.
That's excellent. Are you and Greg, are you both depicted as the detective?
Yes.
Excellent.
So like I said, I'm the time travel detective who knows a lot about history, and Greg is the very much like his persona, the gumshoe detective who knows a lot about geography. So between the two of us, we think, hey, can we put together or solve this murder? And put it this way, spoiler alert, we're not very good at our jobs. So so that's just a heads up. But fortunately, the people I've hired to create this comic with me are really good at their jobs.
Sounds good, man. No, I'm excited for you. I'm sorry, are the artists represented? Your interior artists?
That's what I was about to get into. So I don't know if you can see it if you're listening to this, but when I did a Star Wars novel a couple of years ago, 2019 actually, called Star Wars Force Collector. And it had a beautiful cover. And the artist was Tony Fogarty. So when I came up with the idea of Host Mortem, my first thought was to call Tony. And so he came up with this beautiful, this is what you want in an artist. It's the one on the left that has the police tape that says Host Mortem with Greg.
Got it.
The idea with an artist, in my estimation, is, you come to them with an idea and you tell them exactly what you want, and your hope is that they're going to plus it. They're going to give you something you didn't even dream of. And that's what Tony did for me there. When he turned this around, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. And then I knew I wanted a couple of variant covers. So I don't know if you're a fan of the Blade Runner, right? There was an artist I saw on the internet who took the cover of Blade Runner. I didn't take the cover. He took the theme of Blade Runner and he made it into a pulp novel from like the 40s. And it's a gorgeous look to it. I guarantee you should Google it when we're done. Okay. His name is Timothy Anderson. So I asked him to do one, and he came up with the one with the woman in the foreground. And we can see like the worn edges of the paperback.
Yes.
And then also there is my main artist, Damian Torres, did a version of the cover as well, which looks most like a movie poster, which I love.
The one on the right. Yeah.
Correct.
I'm hoping the audio audience will come to YouTube and then look at these.
Absolutely. So, yeah. And I have to say, I can't say specifics yet, but we also have a mystery comic book artist that everybody knows and loves who's also doing a cover for us. So we're going to announce that soon, but I'm super excited. I'll tell you, without saying who, I reached out to a person and texted like, hey, would you consider doing a cover for my graphic novel? And like 2, 3, 4 days go by and I don't hear back. And I think, whatever. And I was about to text, hey, listen, don't worry about it. And I'm in the car. And you know how Siri now will read text to you?
Yes.
And all I hear is Siri says the person's name and then says, they say, certainly, love to. And I go, in the car, oh my God, really? Oh my God. And then Siri goes, send? And I was like, no, don't send that. Although I pretty much did the same thing when I did respond. But I thought it was very funny that my legitimate response was going to be sent. And it sounded like a crazy person.
That's excellent. So you got to look up Postmortem on Kickstarter or go to postmortem.com.
Just so you know, it's Hostmortem.
Pardon me, Hostmortem. I apologize.
Right. It's quite all right.
Postmortem.com with an H. Very cool. And honestly, Kev, I'm psyched for this. I think that sounds great. And 180 pages. That's not a small book. That's great.
No, it's not. And I tell you, it's. I had all these ideas at first, like, I roped Greg into this, and I thought, the 90s, for whatever reason, people loved a guy in a fedora. There are a lot of TV shows like, Blue's Clues and Cluedo and Figure It Out, all these shows that embrace the detective theme. And I had an idea of like, do I rope them in? But then I realized there was enough story here with just Greg and I. And so I've spoken to other hosts that are from what I call nostalgia hosts, and they're all excited to be part of this in some way, shape, or form. So if this goes well, I'm definitely going to do a follow-up and see if I can continue these tales with some other hosts probably.
You guys like Mark Summers or some of the other...
Yeah, I talked to Mark. Well, the funny thing is, so while I'm writing this graphic novel, I think, all right, well, how would I promote this? If I'm lucky enough to get on John's podcast, I'll do that. But if I go to Comic-Con, what will I do? I could do a panel. Well, who would I invite? And then I started thinking, like, wait a minute. I know all these nostalgia hosts. I said, this is almost shaping up to be like a live improv game show. So I've spoken to like the Mark Summers of the world, the Blue's Clues guys and stuff like that. And everybody's on board. They love this idea. And I'm opening up to podcast hosts, radio hosts, TV hosts, all that stuff. And we're going to start doing like a live improv murder mystery game show, because it does come down to, are hosts smart, or do they know, or they just have the answers? And then we'll figure out, does the audience know more than we do? And
I just remember when busting Alex Trebek's chops about, it's pretty easy to correct people when you got the answers right in front of you.
Absolutely. I always do the same thing. You always seem so cocky when I was always like, and Johnny, is that A or B? He'd be like, A. I'd be like, it. No, it's B. I had to look. I don't know the answers to these things. Now I've got accumulated knowledge, but back then, you're just going off your cue cards.
Well, and I would imagine, even though you're taping it, and obviously if there is like a massive, screw up or whatever, you can go back. But no, man, that's massive focus intense, like in terms of you having to run that game. Yeah.
We did 4 shows a day.
Wow.
And it was what they call live on tape, which meant unless something technically went wrong, or if I like lost a limb, we had to keep going. Even if I screwed up, they'd be like, just keep going.
Wow.
So I guess if something technical went wrong or a camera, they'd start over. But But yeah, we had to do this all live. It was crazy, but also tons of fun. I love that show.
That's amazing. I think Kari might have been a viewer. She wants to know if you're going to use your handy dandy notebook to solve the crimes. Was that a gimmick of yours when you were doing Carmen?
We did have. Yes, it was a notebook, or it was like I don't know what it's supposed to be. It was like a futuristic notebook. But yes, I'm in the 1940s. We got to go with what we normally do. So I'll have some sort of notebook that I'm always taking clues down and things like that.
Who played the chief, Kev?
That was Lynn Thigpen. She was a wonderful woman, and the woman who her character of the chief bridged both shows, and in fact wrote the CD-ROM too. She was part of the computer game. She was part of our show, Greg's show, and left us way too soon. But she was a Tony Award-winning actress. She was in Tootsie. She was in The Warriors. She kind of set the tone. She was such a wonderful woman and a mentor to all of us.
That's great. Very authoritarian. I remember her in the Tim Robbins movie, Bob Roberts.
Yes, of course.
And has a fantastic, scene with Bob Roberts and everything.
Yes.
No, she's great. And man,
she's remarkable.
One of my best friends had the CD-ROM.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what's so funny is I go back and you can see them on YouTube. And my daughter, who's like 14 now, the last 4 years, she started watching them because that was the age. The age was like 12 and 13 with the contestants.
Yes. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it does not age because the questions are about history. But what does age are the rewards. At the end, if you caught Carmen, you won this gigantic computer system, which you needed a U-Haul to take. I'm sure everything that was on that U-Haul could be done with my phone. It's just so funny to see, like, oh my God, it'd take a whole studio to ship that stuff.
That's hilarious, man. Well, I remember the old computer days in the 80s when you needed the cassette recorder, for memory and things like that. Funny stuff, man. No. Well, again, Hostmortem, everybody, at Kickstarter soon. And
yes, within a month. So, like I said, go there and follow us. It's free. You can also follow me across all social media at Kevin Shinick. I also have I started a Substack called Game Show Gumshoe, which on the show I used to answer questions like who was the 13th president. Now I answer questions like what the heck happened to my hosting career. So it's more life's questions than it is now. But I'll also chronicle the creation of this graphic novel as well, which I'm super excited about.
That's excellent, man. Well, I obviously had questions about, some of your other TV work back in the day.
Please.
And I mean, obviously, got to start with Robot Chicken. How'd you hook with the Matt and Seth? Right, they're the main guys.
Yeah, yes.
How'd you hook up with those
Matt
guys?
Senreich. It was just a regular submission. I had just come to LA. I'm from New York, and I was doing a lot of Broadway theater as an actor there. And then I knew I wanted to do some writing, and I kind of broke into writing a little bit in New York. But mostly like at Nickelodeon. What's so funny is how one thing leads to the other. I got a job being the voice of Nickelodeon for a number of years. So I was the guy who was like, coming up next, SpongeBob, followed by the Rugrats. I was that guy. And in the booth, I was making them laugh and having fun. And they were like, would you want to be a writer here? So that took off, but it was in the promo division. I moved out to LA and I had written a Family Guy spec script. And so if you know anything about spec scripts, you can't give those directly to the shows you're doing because then they might sue you or something like that. But anyway, my agents thought it was similar enough to Robot Chicken, or at least the same vibe. So they gave it to Seth and Matt, and then I went in and it just became, a match made in heaven. I mean, those guys have become such good friends to the point where we vacation together. You know what I mean? Our families know each other. Yeah, we do everything together. And that was wonderful. And then, the funny thing, going back to Hostmortem and Carmen Sandiego, was on Robot Chicken, if you watch it, there's so many sketches. We had such a high quota of sketches that we had to deliver every day. Truth be told, I found out later it was not as high as I was told. So I was killing myself to get so many sketches in. But one day I was like, I got nothing. And then I thought, let me do a Carmen Sandiego sketch. And everybody loved it. And at the end of the day, Seth said, how do you remember this show? And I was like, I was the host of this show. He's like, what? So as a result, I now have an action figure because we created one for Robot Chicken. And there's a Carmen Sandiego sketch there. Yeah, it's a little Easter egg.
I always wondered that in terms of the action figures they used for the animation of Robot Chicken, in terms of how many of them are just Migos that you're playing with and how many of them are custom made.
It started just actual toys. But
Figured.
then as the
Sure.
show continued on for budgetary reasons and, things didn't break as easily if we created our own. And so it's still to this day a mixture of created and actual. If the toy exists, we'll most likely get it. But if it doesn't, or like, oh, it needs to do things that this couldn't possibly do, we'll make our own.
Okay. Are you still connected to the show?
Yes, again, these guys are like family. So whenever there's a special, I'll go back. As you know, we did 3 Star Wars specials, we did 3 DC Comics specials.
Oh yeah,
that was a blast. So whenever there's a special, usually they invite me back, and I'll step in and write there too.
that's great, man. No, honestly, the attention to Star Wars and DC, for example, unbelievable parodies, excellent stuff, and all the celebrity voices.
I know.
Sarah Michelle Gellar, I know, is a regular. I don't know if she still is, or
yeah. I mean, everybody, because at this point, everybody's friends, and they just say, "Hey, you want to come back and do this?" They absolutely. But I think the biggest thing was it influenced, although it's a sad tale, is George Lucas saw Family Guy having fun with Star Wars. He saw Robot Chicken having fun with Star Wars, and he was like, "Wait, I want to have fun with Star Wars." So he hired a bunch of us to go up to Skywalker Ranch and create a animated Star Wars sitcom. And he was so excited by it. I got to go up. I lived at Skywalker Ranch for like a month, literally sitting next to George every day, pitching story, doing whatever. And we wrote 3 full seasons, produced 2 full seasons of Star Wars Detours, and then he sold the company. And then Kathleen Kennedy was like, "No, I don't think so." But my destiny was not to see that show come to life. My journey was to sit next to George Lucas and create it with him. You know what I mean? I was just like, in some ways, it's better off as the lore, because that way you can't love it, you can't hate it. It's somewhere in the middle.
Honestly, man, I didn't get to collaborate with him, but at one of the press junkets for those last couple Batman Cape Crusader cartoons with Adam West and Burt Ward.
Wow.
Got to sit next to Adam at the circle table of press junket. And yeah, I mean, really, and I had met him years earlier where we were both at a comic convention, and we were the only 2 people on the elevator, and it was going massively slow. And he was hilarious then, and he was hilarious in my last encounter with
Weren't they great? They were they embodied those characters, and then they did them on our Robot Chicken show and stuff. And again, I have to go back every now and then, just remind my inner 10-year-old, like, look at what you're doing. I mean, because then I would all wind up on the DC Comics specials being that Ted Knight announcer of like, "Meanwhile, the Super Friends," So again, we were just having a blast.
Well, and again, all you guys on both Robot Chicken and the Mad Animated show, you guys knew your material, man. You knew that you knew the source material, and it came through, and that's why we all love it. I mean, truly, it's like, all right, these guys, I mean, sometimes you respect, air quotes, an attempt of, here's that Star Trek thing. Okay, we're going to do a sketch. Carol Burnett, for example, doing a Star Trek thing back in the 70s or 60s.
Right.
That kind of thing. But no, man, it's like, again, well, that's the interesting, I think, demand of adult animation. And, you guys are still safe for an all ages audience and everything. But no, man, I mean, I just love how American animation has grown up in the last 30 years, 25 years. You tell me, you know better, Kev, how long, I mean, where suddenly it's acceptable to make this stuff for an adult audience.
Well, what's funny is Mad came out of the fact that Warner Brothers had gotten the rights back from Mad TV, which had just wrapped up. And in a sense, Mad TV was like a sibling to SNL.
Yes.
And we really wanted to create something that was more of a sibling to the magazine. And of course, animation makes more sense. So the marching orders were from Adult Swim and Cartoon Network with, we want a Robot Chicken, but for a primetime audience. So that's what Mad wound up being. And when you say, how lucky we were, it's not lost on me, because not only does everybody love Mad Magazine, but what blew my mind is getting to work with the same people that created the magazine that I loved. I had a staff of 15 in-house animators, and yet I also had Sergio Aragones coming down from his house up north in his convertible with the license plate that says Viva Mad, with his ponytail blowing in the wind, and he would literally hand in his hand-drawn sketches. And I'm like, this is it all, it's all about, So, but everybody loves Mad. Everybody from Monty Python to The Simpsons to us at Robot Chicken. It was such an influence on everyone.
Well, in the 50s, and I always make this comparison, Mad Magazine in the 50s was like The Daily Show once it
Absolutely.
found its footing in terms of no, this was a
Totally.
great satirical magazine. Then
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm from the 40-cent cheap 70s era and
Right,
everything.
right.
So
Of
yeah,
course.
Spy versus Spy, and I mean, I always appreciated the juvenile stuff. But then as I got older, it was the guys like, and now I'm blanking, Dave, the lighter side, and I forget his
Oh, Dave Berg.
Dave Berg.
Oh,
Thank
well,
you,
yeah.
man.
Dave
But yeah,
Berg,
and
right.
Sergio stuff. My
Sergio,
God,
Don
yeah,
Martin,
Don Martin, of course,
Peter
Jack.
Cooper, who did Private Spy. Yeah.
Jack
All of them.
Davis, and
Of
and
course.
I loved on Mad TV. Or now, how do you
I just
say?
call it Mad, but
All
nowadays
right,
I say Mad the animated series. It was
there
just
you go.
called Mad.
Well, what I loved about your version of Mad was, the classic comics and stuff would do the movie parodies and the TV parodies,
Yeah.
and they'd have those great artists and stuff do great approximations of the
Yeah.
celebrities. But I loved that on you guys, you would just take the real head and put it on a cartoon body.
Exactly.
Hilarious, man.
But you
Great.
know what I tried to do too was, because, as we were speaking about, I love animation, and we had the opportunity with Mad to make every episode like a film festival of different animation styles. So we did have photo heads, but then we also had Tom Richmond was the current Mort Drucker of the contemporary Mad magazine. We had his style. We had stop motion. We used puppets. We used 2D. We used CGI. Anything that would work within one 11-minute episode. You saw like a dozen different styles of animation.
Are the episodes on Max to stream?
You know what? They're not on Max for some reason, but you can see them on Amazon Prime.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I don't know why they're not on Max, but yes, they're on Amazon Prime. And I gotta say, I love doing them and rewatching them. I still giggle when I watch them because it was a cornerstone for me.
Kevin, they're funny. I mean, it's that simple. They are funny, and also it's really. I mean, and maybe I'm late to the party, but SNL obviously this past weekend just had their
Right.
50th anniversary.
Yes.
I'm a big comedy snob, I'll admit, because honestly,
Mhm.
it's like, all right, you better make me laugh because I've been
I
around a
know.
long time now, but they
I
still
know.
do. And honestly, the same thing can be said about Mad in terms of these are great short little things that are perfect for TikTok, YouTube.
Really true.
And yeah, how do you like, and again, you've been in the business as this has been happening. How do you see all this evolving to where we are now?
It's so interesting to look at because I don't know what the future holds. And I tell this when I do keynote speaking, I talk to students, I do all sorts of stuff. But my feeling is we can never second guess what the technology will be, but the content is always going to be the same. It's going to be, is it funny? Are you getting out something unique? What's going to make you stand out from the crowd? And yes, the only thing that's happened now is it's getting shorter and shorter. When we did Mad and Robot Chicken, they were 11-minute episodes. Now you're looking at 20-second videos on TikTok or Instagram. Even now, I do funny stuff on my Instagram, and it's like 20 seconds. I do it like a couple of times a week, and just to keep in practice. You know what I mean?
Great.
And
that's great.
And that's what I mean by funny is funny, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No, and again, I hear what you're saying. I gotta ask because obviously, as an active TV writer and stuff, and the buzzsaw that we all went through 2 summers ago with the strikes and everything. I know, talking to my other friends that are in the business, how tough it is to sell a new idea these days.
Absolutely, it really is. I'll be honest with you. I got like 4 shows in development, and in 2024 it was Stay Alive until 25, and now we're in 2025, and it's like Stay Alive in 25. So they keep changing the goalposts, but I don't quite understand it because there's so much content out there. It's just that people are either they're backlogged or they're being overly particular or whatnot. But what's amazing is I do think we're at crossroads now. And I think the old model is not working. When I say the old model, we always go through these shifts. And if you have a show and you go to Netflix and Amazon and maybe Hulu or Max, I don't know, and then you're done. Because if everybody says no, you're like, oh, well. But it's like when they stop accepting things, the world is starting to say like, well, where else can I go? And that's why people are putting things on YouTube. They're putting them on their Instagram accounts. They're putting them on TikTok. And that's where audiences are finding what they enjoy. I think the age range of 6 to 15 has taken a hit because kids are not watching cartoons. They're all on their phones or they're all on their tablets, and they're going to YouTube and they're going to TikTok. So you just got to find them. You know what I mean? They're people always want entertainment. It's just what are they staring at that you can stick your stuff in front of?
Do you want to write still for that younger demo, or do you want to do all ages? What are you looking to do with your four shows?
I'm young at heart, so I'll always, I'm always like what they call a 4-quadrant guy, which is like family stuff. Because I like that's what honestly Mad was for me. If something visually on the screen was for kids, I wanted the dialogue to be for adults. If the dialogue was for kids, I wanted the visuals to be for adults. There are shows when my daughter was young that I watched and be like, oh my God, put me out of my misery, please. And I didn't want to be one of those shows. So I just write for what entertains me. I mean, when we were growing up, we had Bugs Bunny, we had Warner Brothers, we didn't know who Humphrey Bogart was or who Liberace was, but they made those references anyway, and you looked them up. You figured out who they were. Nowadays, I hate when people say, oh, they're not going to know who so-and-so is. So have them look it up or make it funny enough that you don't need to know who that is.
One of my favorite old Bugs Bunny cartoons was when they're at, I guess, the Brown Derby or somewhere where Bogart is the customer and Elmer Fudd's the waiter. And just, that Bogart voice, although I always thought for sure it was Bogart because he was at Warner Brothers at the same time, but it was another actor. And just that Bogart voice of, why'd you hit me in the face with a coconut custard cream pie?
I know. And yet that's funny. You don't even have to know who Humphrey Bogart is. You know what I mean? It's just funny. So,
absolutely.
I mean, I also like adult stuff, which is why, and it's funny because looking back, I feel like I was inching my way towards Postmortem because, I've written for Batman and he's the world's greatest detective. I've written Scooby-Doo and Kiss movie, which was, the Mystery Machine. Then I helped launch the Mike Tyson Mysteries.
Yes,
so
you
I keep
did.
getting older. I get older and more meta. And now we're at Postmortem, which could not be more meta. And it's going to be adult and it's going to be funny. So
I'm with you, man.
So
I'm by the way, I was going to get to Mike Tyson Mysteries. I don't have a visual, but I mean, my God, just his crew, including that ghost and stuff, which immediately made me think of our Saturday mornings with the Funky Phantom.
And that was the whole point, Hanna-Barbera, whether we didn't have, it was capturing the spirit of Hanna-Barbera.
Sure.
So, and it wasn't, who is haunting the amusement park. It was like, why does this author have writer's block? It was just random, crazy mysteries, But Mike Tyson, I mean, right there, Mike Tyson Mysteries. How can you go wrong? It's all there in the title. And what makes it magical is you have Mike. If you had gotten a sound alike, I don't think it would have ever been the same.
Oh, no.
Mike
absolutely.
Mike Tyson.
Was he in the writer's room? Did you
he
guys talk
wasn't
to him directly?
In the writer's room. No, we worked with him directly, but he wasn't in the writer's room.
All right.
We were lucky to get him in the record booth. So, he lives in, he doesn't live in LA and so we would get there, but a wonderful guy, a fantastic guy. And what's crazy is now there have been documentaries about him and things like that, but a lot of the stuff came out of his interests. Like he grew up with a pigeon coop. He loves pigeons. In fact, it's sad, but he tells a story of how when he was little, this bully broke like his pigeons' necks. And I think that probably put him on the path to who he is.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like the things that shape us at that early age. And so we kind of try to fold in a lot of the stuff that actually came from him.
That's great, man. I covered him when I was writing boxing in the 90s for Boxing Illustrated and Ring Magazine.
Amazing.
And got to meet him at a couple press conferences and stuff. And it's it
broke
my heart.
He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah, it broke my heart when with the fight with Jake Paul and everything.
Oh, don't even.
I know, man. Sorry.
I can't even go there. So much wrong with that. And it's like, look, he's got a family and, he make money. Make money.
Well, and also I want to acknowledge your comic book writing beyond Postmortem because you've done a lot of stuff at Marvel. I remember when you were doing your Carnage series last time we spoke.
That was a lot of fun. Superior Carnage I did. My first foray was Batman. I did a story in Batman, 80-page giant. And then I jumped on, what was it called? It was Clayface in Joker's Asylum 2, which was a mini series. But then, I've had fun. I did Superior Spider-Man Team Up. I did Axis Hobgoblin. I just launched about a year or so ago Web of Spider-Man, but Web is an acronym. It's not the original Web of Spider-Man. It stands for Worldwide Engineering Brigade. I jumped on the Flash for a little bit, which was a blast.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did. I jumped on Flash. What was amazing to me was, and I thought it was so funny how they said this, but DC called me and said, hey, anything that's ever been worth doing with the Flash has been done. You want to jump on it for a while? And I was like, well, thanks. What a great way to put it. But I did. And I thought about it. I said, only if I can do something that I think is going to interest me. Now, when I was growing up, Barry was my guy.
Yep.
Barry Allen.
Yep.
And this was going to involve Barry. So I thought, oh my God, what did I love about Barry? And I loved as a kid that ring where his costume popped out of it. So I searched through all the history. I thought, did they ever explain like how or why he made that ring other than to hold his costume? And they didn't. So my story, while an action story, also involves a B story of why and how he created that ring. And it just excites me that I was able to add to the lore, because, you know, I've got a little puzzle in my head that every time I sit down to do a comic book, I want to do a certain things. And one is have something to say that's unique, that hasn't been said before. And that's why I didn't say yes to Flash until I came up with that idea. And then I said, you know what? I know what I can do with this that would really excite me, and I think really excite a reader. So that's why I took that on.
Was it a story arc? Was it a one shot? What was it?
It was a story arc. It was about 5 issues, I think, 4 or 5 issues. It starts out with well, I can't remember what number it was, to be honest. It was in the middle. I mean, they've done so much Flash, but if you do Flash and Kevin Shinick, it'll come up.
Very cool.
I had a great time because I love Flash, and at the time, there was so much going on that I thought I can't even catch up. You know, it was Wally and all that stuff, and that's why I wanted to bring this back to basics, and I wanted this to be a story that you could pick up right with that first issue and enjoy the 5-issue arc without having to know what came before, what's coming after, whatever. And they were good enough to let me do that. So that's why I'm super proud of it.
It's interesting generationally how people feel about Barry and Wally.
Totally.
And yeah, I mean, because again, just like you, man, Barry was my first Flash.
Yeah.
And really grew to appreciate Jay in the reprints, and also the times they would cross over, and especially
that's what's great about it. Yeah,
when the 3 of them were together, that was fantastic. Oh my God! But you know, I mean, certainly, again, I was reading Crisis as it was happening, so I'm like, all right, now it's Wally, great. But man, you know, those younger fans and stuff, to hell with Barry, man. More Wally, and it's like,
I was gonna say, it's so true. Well, the younger fans on everything, online, everything, everybody has an opinion. They're like, it's mine or nothing, and you're like, all right, he's up. I mean, I created the. In addition to web, I'm the only person, this carries very little weight except maybe at Comic-Con, but I'm the only person to have written Spider-Man for the comics, the stage, and the screen. And I'm not referring to the Julie Taymor one. About a decade before that, I did the first ever feature-length Spider-Man presentation play. It wasn't a musical, but there was music in it at Radio City Music Hall.
Wow.
And then it toured the country, like 40 cities. And it was this fantastic experience. But I bring that up because when I was offered the chance to do that, I thought, well, now it's so obvious that Norman Osborn is the villain. But when I was growing up, Norman was already dead. So it was Harry, his son, who was the Green Goblin. So it was so weird to me that, I was like, we're back to Norman now, because my entire childhood, it was Harry, you know? So it's just funny how things shift and change, and they always will.
100%, man. And I'm very open-minded about the changes and the legacy heroes and things. And no, it's, hey, we're all anticipating the Thunderbolts movie, and I'm glad one of your animated episodes showed the original Thunderbolts in that Avengers cartoon.
Exactly.
And I got that image up right now of the group.
That's great. I like that.
So man. Yeah, are you excited for the Thunderbolts movie? I know it's a different lineup.
I'm always excited for anything. Yeah, I mean, I get excited by this stuff, and yes, there has to be change. As much as I love whatever I loved, there has to be change.
Sure.
Because it's just, and I thought about this recently, and it's jumping genres, but I saw the recent Alien movie.
Okay. Romulus.
And I enjoyed it. And then I was reading at reviews, and people were like, "Oh, it's so much better. Thank God they didn't go, they didn't follow that Prometheus and the one after that." I thought, yeah, but you had to get to here, because it would all have just been the same note played over and over and over again. You need to mix it up. And some people really like that Prometheus and the one afterwards, and some people don't. But you need a variety to compare things to. You know what I mean? That's why that's called growth.
I'm with you, man. No, I'm absolutely with you. Have you had a chance yet to see the Captain America movie?
I did. It's respectable. I did. When Endgame came, that was my chance to tap out. You know what I
Sure.
mean? I was on the journey and I was like, wow, this was fantastic. I don't think I need to keep going so religiously because they've done it. And I think I'm only going to be disappointed if I keep going. So I've respected a lot of what they do. And I've liked certain ones that I'm like, oh, that was surprisingly good. But overall, I think it all peaked with Endgame, personally. And I think they'll bring it back. But for now, Endgame was the.
Oh no, I agree with you on both counts, Kev. I think that was their high point, and I think that sadly, I think they've been kind of struggling just in general of all the movies in 7 years subsequently since the Endgame year. That said, I think Captain America was decent. Unfortunately, I think it's a bit derivative of Winter Soldier and God, really, as I mean, I've already spoiled it on my show and done a full review, but just going back to the stuff from the Ed Norton Hulk movie was an interesting choice. I wanted more Carl Lumbly and Isaiah Bradley, frankly. I know. I ever since that Robert Morales story came out 25 years ago, I've been all about it. And I'm like, oh, here's a great opportunity to really explore that. Man, I would love to see a TV movie or a side movie where they flash back to the 50s and we get to see 50s Isaiah Bradley,
That'd be fantastic. As your listeners probably know, today they announced that, the Broccoli's are stepping away from James Bond.
I know.
Creatively. It's shocking, but it was inevitable at some point.
True.
But I kept thinking after the last movie, I was a huge Daniel Craig fan. I thought Casino Royale was like pitch perfect. Then my opinion, wavers as they continue going on.
Sure.
However, and when it ended, I thought to myself, what could they do? I'm trying to think from their point of view. And I thought, they're never going to do this, but I don't have it in me to sit through another reboot right now. It was the anniversary, it was like the 60th anniversary, I think, or whatever it was, right? Right when
2022.
Yeah, right. And I thought what they should have done, instead of a $300 million James Bond movie, I thought, divvy it up. Do 4 $50 million movies, give it to 4 different directors, have a James Bond weekend. Remember when Kiss didn't break up, but they came out with their 4 solo albums?
Yes, I do.
Give Idris Elba his. Give the female James Bond theirs. Give the Tarantino a 1960s version. And then let the audience decide, oh, this is the direction I want to see this go in. I mean, they'll never do that, but that's what I thought they should have done at the time.
I think that's really interesting and creative. And I'll be honest, because I really was all about reading the friction between the Broccoli's and Amazon in those initial or at least the most recent meetings that suddenly became public and everything. And initially when I read it and I'm like, all right, Amazon's taking creative control. I'm like, ugh. But by the same token, then I read the statements from Michael Wilson and Barbara Broccoli. Mm-hmm. And it's like, Michael Wilson's 83 and you really, you want to put him through the ringer of finding a new Bond and vetting a script. So I understand that. And Barbara, I mean, she's not that much older than me. She's in her mid 60s, but it's like, all right, I get it. And also I'm sure, hey, I hope Amazon backed up the truck and gave them a nice severance package of, all right, you don't have to worry about this anymore. And then also my friend Rob Burnett, who's a good YouTube critic and a massive James Bond fan, I got to agree with them where it's like, on the one hand, I'm like, I don't know what Amazon's going to do. But then it's like, well, wait a minute. Amazon made The Boys and didn't interfere with Kripke and Seth Rogen with the way they made that. Invincible is a hard R animated show. Fallout is a really great adaptation of a video game. And it's like,
absolutely.
All right. Well, I wasn't crazy about that first season of the Hobbit stuff they tried to do.
Right.
But they're batting 500. So maybe they do have good ideas that the Broccoli's, because they are so entrenched on what their father brought to the franchise. Exactly. And God bless them for maintaining the spirit and tone of Bond. Yes. But maybe it is time for a creative jolt of, new blood.
Look, change is tough. Change is tough. If they stuck around and we didn't like things, we would have complained. If they're leaving and we don't like things, we're going to complain. People just like to complain, but we all just we all have different connections to James Bond. And with any IP, if you think about it, why did Endgame do so well? They were incredibly done. They were done incredibly well, but they also connected to a lot of the stuff we grew up with. The comics were being brought to life. There's so much connection and so much baggage, if you will, that come with movies when you're doing IP that exists. I always joke, That's all I did for the longest time was IP. So I was invariably ruining someone's childhood, you know. But I will say, for whatever reason, that Scooby-Doo and Kiss movie, that just seemed to hit the bullseye. I think people who love Kiss were desperate for their kids to love Kiss. And when they crossed over with Scooby-Doo, I do a lot of these Kiss cons, and it's so funny. They're like, "Oh my God." They were just so excited to have a crossover that it really makes me happy.
That's excellent, man. No. I mean, yeah, the Kiss were so important in the 70s, and obviously those parents are still, very, very dyed-in-the-wool fans. And no, man, that and hell, that TV movie they made when we were kids and everything. Come on.
Well, that's not to. I don't want to say I took this on, but in my mind, by writing Kiss and Scooby-Doo, I was righting the wrongs of that movie. Because I thought and Paul Stanley, he asked me in front of it, and I got an ooh, and I didn't mean to. In front of everybody at Comic-Con, at Studio H or wherever we were, he said, "Have you seen Kiss in the Phantom Amusement Park?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can you tell me what it's about?" And I said, "It's about an hour and a half too long." And everybody went, "Ooh," but I didn't mean that as an insult. I was like, no, there's so much air. Like the camera watches them walk across a room before they speak. I said, there's a solid 22-minute TV show in there.
Hilarious.
There really is. But
that's fantastic.
That's what you talk about, the joys of animation. That's what that movie should have been, and that's why we made Scooby-Doo and Kiss, because we could do things with animation that you couldn't do in back then or with real people.
Are you friends with my friend Heath Corson?
Yes, I do. I we're not friends, but our paths have
friendly. Crossed. Yeah, okay, yes, exactly. That's cool.
Friendly.
No, honestly, man, a lot of those crossover, not only the Scooby-Doo movies, but he did that Johnny Quest Tom and Jerry movie and stuff.
Yes,
and really, man. I'm like, all right, prove it to me.
I know.
God damn it, man. They're good. They're funny.
I know.
And I would say the same thing about what you did with Kiss and Scooby-Doo, man.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
That. The greatest comment I got was from Gene Simmons, because Gene, has a huge ego. And he said to me, "You did a great job of riding the line." He said, "Either one of these properties could have outweighed or shadowed the other. And you went right down the line." I was like, I'll take that. I'll take that compliment from Gene Simmons.
That's fantastic. Did they have any input as far as vetting for the movie?
Yeah. They had every version of the script. And I got to say, I wrote it, and I will do this with any script. I will write it. I was going to say balls to the wall, which I will. But
right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't hold myself back. I thought, let me do the movie I want to do, and then you can tell me what's wrong, what I have to take back. And I put all those gags about how they're just trying to sell merch instead of music, and they kept them all in. They were like, there was not one thing that they were like, okay, let's go too far. And I was like, this is great. They were so good to work with.
That's excellent. How about the other things like, it sounded like obviously Lucas was already a fan and wanted to be involved with the Robot Chicken stuff. So was that easy to vet?
Well, that was the funny thing with, like I said before, with Star Wars Detours, he wanted in on the fun action, but that was after we did the 3 Star Wars specials, and he was great with those. I will say, I don't think I'm talking out of school. They were very great with. They let us do anything. They did have one note. I think it's from the 2nd special where where Anakin has to go and kill the younglings, and he pretends he's in the sunflower garden on Naboo. So you just see him slicing the heads off of sunflowers, but what's really happening. And they said, like, we prefer if you don't do that. And I think we stood our ground, and they relented. They were like,
wow,
right, I know.
Oh man, I got to go back and watch that now. That's great.
I know, it's pretty disturbing.
And is the Robot Chicken stuff on Max?
Yes.
Okay, good, excellent. Yes. That's excellent, man. No, that's good. I don't know if you wrote this or not, and I didn't even remember the specific sketch, but I know there was a spaceman or something that had a bubble helmet, and he threw up in his helmet, and you saw this different multicolored clay for the vomit.
Yeah. Well, what's so funny is that room is so different than you think for the longest time, because like Mad Magazine, I remember there being an episode of The Simpsons where Bart goes to New York and he sees Mad Magazine. And when you go inside, you see craziness. And I think he misses that or something like that. People think that's what the Robot Chicken Room is. And it's just the opposite for the longest time. Because as I told you, we have such a high quota of sketches to get in that for the first 2.5 to 3 weeks, it is a silent room with 6 writers just typing, because we're like, what am I going to come up with? And then once we do, and then we all pull the sketches and we have a script, then the room comes together and we punch up every episode. So everybody's hands are on everybody's sketches. And that's where it becomes more communal and funny and all that stuff. But for the first 2.5, 3 weeks, it's like a tomb in there.
Between Robot Chicken and Mad, you haven't found yourself burning out in terms of ideas? Do today's headlines, and I don't even mean the political stuff, or even just the society in general, or are there always new ideas coming to you in those capacities?
What's funny is Robot Chicken taught me, like I said, we got a 5-day work week. Everything has to be done by 3 o'clock, 8 sketches, 12 short sketches, all this stuff. I remember on a Tuesday, and this happened frequently, on a Tuesday at noon, I was like, I got nothing. I am bone dry.
Sure.
This is empty. And then you just, I don't know, you find these reserves, or you dig deep, or they come from where you don't expect them. And the other crazy thing that I've learned, and this happens constantly, is I'll spend all day on what I think is the greatest sketch ever and toning it and doing that. And then I have to hand in more than one. So like 5 minutes to 3, I whip out whatever I can come up the last second. And nobody likes the sketch I spent all day on, but they find the one I pulled out of my ass hilarious. And it's like, who knew? And to your point, like I said earlier, I've been doing some jokes on my Instagram account, and I started doing it more as an exercise. And I thought, what can I do? Not almost daily, like 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I post them.
Okay.
And I think, let me just find the newspaper and not newspaper, it seems so old, but let me hear the news and see what's out there. And so I've been trying to keep the muscle, in practice. And I'm just like an exercise. So there is comedy to be found. That's what Robot Chicken and Mad taught me, was even when you think you've got nothing left, that you could find something.
That's great. A lot of your stuff, obviously, on both shows were, visual as well as the jokes themselves. Honestly, Kev, I'm an old radio nerd, and I love like the classic stuff. The way that audio, not only drama but comedy too, and really I see more of it or hear more of it on from the BBC. That there are a lot of great audio comedy series and stuff. Is that something that realm of audio? Is that something you've ever tried or would want to try?
I've never tried. I've done. There's something I'm going to point you to. It's called the Novelizers, and I was invited to be part of it. It's not my thing. But I was invited to, and for your listeners who don't know, the idea was we take a classic movie. Let's just say the first one we did was Star Trek II. And then we divided up into 5-minute segments of that movie. And then a comedy writer was assigned a 5-minute segment. And you go in and they want you to keep the story, but you can do anything you want. You can have flashbacks, flash forwards. You could go ridiculous as long as you keep the plot moving forward. And so I did one for Star Trek II. I did one for Independence Day. And it's just a lot of fun. And they get a lot of celebrities to read them. I read my own. And it was like that. It was like a book on tape, but also like a radio play. And one of the tiers or the stretch goals I was thinking for Host Mortem might be a fun thing to do a radio play of the graphic novel so you can listen as you're reading along in your book, as we used to say.
That would be amazing. And I did notice in your credits that you worked on the Novelizers. I'm gonna have to go back because I'm a big Star Trek nerd, Kev. So I gotta hear your.
You know what? That was my favorite one. I think it's like chapter 6 of the Star Trek II one. It's all about Chekhov. It's all about Chekhov, and that's
great.
Yeah, I had a great thing. And you know what's so funny? I just bring this up because it is something that's coming up. But whether you're a fan of manifesting or you believe in manifesting, I started this Host Mortem thing because I thought, what do I have to offer the world that only I can do? There's a time where people are like, oh, no one's looking for you or your flavor or whatever. And I was like, all right, well, I got to be specific. So I really shook the host tree. And then I called my agents and I said, well, maybe I should get back into hosting or something like that. And that didn't fall on deaf ears, but it's a tough industry right now. Then an audition comes across my desk for the ultimate host. And I wind up getting it. So as a result, I've been cast as legendary host Dick Clark in the new Michael Jackson movie that's coming out next October. And I swear to God, John, I was like, I shook the host tree and this fell out. And it was fantastic. It really was. Speaking of movies, Antoine Fuqua from Training Day and the Equalizer movies, he's the director. The writer, I think he wrote the original Gladiator. Michael Jackson's real life nephew, Jafar, is playing Michael. Miles Teller is there as Michael's attorney. It was such a great experience and a fun set. And they, without giving too much away, obviously he's connected to American Bandstand. We recreated American Bandstand, all the stuff. It was really amazing. So that was my little nod to, if you have hopes and dreams out there, speak them out loud. You know what I mean? Tell the world what you're looking for, because sometimes the universe listens. So that's my advice today.
Very, very cool, man. And no, you've got that Dick Clark immortal gene.
I know, right?
I assumed you were a vampire or something like that.
I was going to say, I don't know about that, but I did love Dick Clark growing up. I mean, I watched him on America and then New Year's Rockin' Eve and $25,000 Pyramid and all that stuff. So it was kind of so weird. And every time I tell someone, they go, "Of course you are." I was like, I know, it's how I felt too. When the audition came across my desk, I thought, oh my God, I'm so right for this, but it's not going to happen. You just had the attitude sometimes, and then sure enough, it did. So
that's beautiful, Kev. No, we look for whenever that.
I think that's October 3rd. I think is when it's coming.
Oh, of this year.
Of this year, yeah, we shot it last year. Yeah, we shot it last year.
Okay, and in theaters or streaming?
In theaters, it's a Lionsgate film.
Man, Lionsgate's killing it. I got to say, they make these movies on a lower budget. And whether they're streaming movies or film releases and stuff, I'm always impressed. What about that, Kev? As we wrap up, it does seem like unless it is a recognizable IP, the movie business is in such chaos and really was starting to even feel that way pre-COVID.
I know,
and I mean, COVID only exacerbated that. I mean, I know a lot of people, and I'm kind of in that camp too. Where when I saw Captain America Sunday. I'm looking at the rest of the marquee of the other movies. I'm like, I'm not interested in any of these. I got to be honest to see them in the theater. What do you think of what's going on?
I belong to one of those movie theaters where you pay $25 a month. You can see as much as you want because I want to support movies on the big screen. Sure. I love seeing movies on the big screen. A certain movie, I'll be honest. I sat through 3.5 hours of The Brutalist, which, gets its title from its running time. No, but I did enjoy it too, and I don't know if you get the same response if you see it on television, because I don't know if I would have stayed with it the entire time if I'm sitting on my couch with my phone not far from me on the small screen. So I'm excited when the new Mission Impossible movie comes out, or like I said, even Captain America, I want to see on the big screen because it is a dying art in a sense. And there are certain things I can't fight. I know AI is coming. I'm not excited by that, but there are certain things, and everybody says, "Oh, everybody watches things on their phone." I know they do. I just happen to like them. It's tough now because I prefer to see movies in the theater, but I also hate when people around me look at their phones or talk or anything, and people are doing that more and more because they're used to sitting in their living rooms.
Yeah, they've lost the etiquette that we grew up with of shh. Don't talk.
And the theaters tell them. Everybody says it right in the beginning, but no one listens. No. So that's why you've got to get a nice. If you are going to watch stuff at home, you got to get a nice screen and enjoy it in the comforts of your own home.
I guess as we close, I want to zoom in on what's behind you and some of the framed stuff we got behind you. Tell me about it.
Well, what I do is it started with whenever I do a comic book, I try and buy a page from the artist. So here is my first Batman comic, and Rafa Gares was the artist who did the Batman 90-page giant story that I did, and I loved it. Now that what's becoming increasingly difficult is you really can't get these anymore because artists don't write on paper or draw on paper. They use a tablet.
That's right.
So they're becoming a rarity. And so, especially with Host Mortem, I said to Damien and Andrea, I said, let's plan on doing at least a certain number of pages on paper so that we can auction them off or have backers, back them. But because it is, up here, Aaron Cooter did my Deadpool and Spider-Man book, which I love doing, Avenging Spider-Man. Excellent. This is an original Jerry Robinson Batman and Joker.
Wow, that's so great, Kev. Jesus, I blew it. I didn't have enough money his last San Diego when it was only $100 to get a sketch from him and stuff. And to this day, I'm kicking myself that I wasn't able to afford it at the moment,
Well, I hope you weren't behind me because with the story that goes along with this is I waited in line like everybody else. And when I got up there, he said, "Do you want Batman or the Joker?" And then he said, "Or both." And I said, "If you're going to offer both, I'll take both." He drew it. And afterwards, he was like, I gotta go back to my hotel. I'm too tired. And and the entire line was like, oh. So that may have been like one of his last commissions because I think I spent it. And then let me see if I have it.
Yeah.
I got this years ago, an original Bob Kane.
Oh, that's great, Kev. Jesus Christ, look at that. Outstanding.
Because I collect historical letters. So I have a letter from like Charles Dickens. I have a letter from Laurence Olivier, from Orson Welles, and things like that. So when I would go to those book fairs, I came across that Bob Kane, and I was like, oh my God. And this is like 30 years ago. I've had that now. So yeah, I love the written word. I love the tactile of paper. If you watched Mad, the animated series, I tried to keep the paper feeling. So whereas Robot Chicken had a lot of the static when you were changing channels, Mad, you were turning the page or crumpling the page or ripping the page, because I just love books. To this day, I was reading a book the other day outside on the park bench. Someone walked by and said, "A book?" And I was like, "Well, yes." And they were just so shocked that I wasn't on my phone. But you know, that's why I didn't want this to be a digital comic. I want to host mortem, and I should say it's being distributed by Clover Press. And if you know Clover, you know that there's a certain prestige that goes along with that. And that's exactly what I was hoping for, because I want this, not only do I want the story to be incredible, and do you really enjoy it, I want this to be something that you happily display in your collection. I have a gentleman named Jesse Larson that we haven't revealed yet, I don't think, but he did this beautiful cover that I'm going to use, I think, for a slip cover. And again, it's something that I think you'd want to display. His cover, I'm definitely putting on my wall, but I want you to be able to put that whole book in your library and be proud of it.
My friend Jason Wood, another podcaster, always refers to it as shelf porn, and he's right. No, absolutely. You're right, man. No, you buy one of those big oversized coffee table book of comic strip reprints, and you're proud to have it on your bookcase. Absolutely, man.
Yeah, and but my book could be on a shelf between Clover's The Spirit and Clover's Dick Tracy. I'm in good standing.
Outstanding, Kev. Dude, great to see you. And truly, everybody, Hostmortem, this wonderful Kickstarter that's getting underway soon. Go to hostmortem.com and track, and also go to Kickstarter and help.
It's a link to Kickstarter, so it's free. Just sign up, just follow me, and we'll let you know about early bird specials and when we're going to launch, which is going to be very soon. And you'll be the first to hear about this new. I guarantee you're going to be excited for this mystery artist who's doing our cover. I was thrilled, as you could tell, as Siri almost sent that message. But follow us, follow me at Kevin Shinick across social media. And I'm just going to go on a limb here and say I'm going to guarantee you're really going to enjoy this book, because the work that's being put into it, even beyond my part, but the art, everything, people are just doing their best. They really are.
Well, you're a brand we can trust, Kev. The people that have read and watched your writing before know that we're in for a good ride with Hostmortem. Absolutely, man. And really, like I said, ridiculous. I'm sorry it's been 15 years, but I'm really glad to see you.
We got to find more reasons to talk.
Anytime, man. You're welcome back. And everybody will look forward to this Michael Jackson movie in October that Kevin's going to play Dick Clark.
Dick Clark, if you can believe it.
Outstanding. No, thanks a lot, Kev. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. Next week, great week at Word Balloon Live. We start up again, and we'll do probably a review show of some of the animation that's currently running and everything. We're only a week or so away from Daredevil getting started and some of the other good streaming shows. So we got a lot to talk about, plus a lot of great guests like Kevin as well. So until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.